Hi, I'm Dave Monroe, Truistic's Beer Bread Bakery. When I was young, I started, if I ever went to my mom when I was young and a kid and I'm bored, my mom would tell me, bake a cake, bake some cookies. Do we have the ingredients? I don't know, go look. So I started baking at a young age. One of the things that we started baking was bread. And I would help my mom bake the bread, and eventually I started baking it myself. The bread that we used to make was her mother's oatmeal molasses bread, porridge bread. Anybody in the East Coast knows what porridge bread is. So that's what we first started making. In my 20s, I tasted beer bread, and it was pretty good. So after my mom passed away, and I found the bread machine that we used to use to make, that I had adapted her oatmeal molasses recipe to, and we used to make that all the time. But after she passed away, I found the bread machine again, and I started baking. And then I remembered that I had tasted beer bread in my 20s, and I went out to develop the ultimate beer bread. Well, so far I have 13 recipes on paper. I will be launching 2 do-it-yourself craft beer bread kits, honey garlic ale that can be used with an amber, a blonde, a cream, golden, red, any of the lighter ales or a light lager. We can use the honey garlic and it'll make a nice loaf. The other kit is oatmeal stout. So any stout, any porter can be used, probably any dark beers. I haven't used them yet, but I will be in the future. And the reason that I'm wanting to do this and the name Truistic's Beer Bread Bakery, well, I have lived a pretty altruistic life for the last 20 some odd years because I had a life-changing experience of having my daughter diagnosed with a childhood cancer. That changes everything. So when I started baking the breads and things like this, friends, family told me that I should be selling them. And that name, because of my altruistic past, my volunteer life and things like this, the name and the purpose for the business came clear to me. And that's it, Dave Monroe, Truistic's Beer Bread Bakery. When you walk in the kitchen, the first thing you do is wash your hands. And you wash them, you wet them, you get a dab of soap in them, maybe about the size of a quarter or so. You lather, and you lather for about at least 15 seconds. You make sure you get under your nails and what have you. And you wash, as I said, at least 15 seconds. You rinse your hands in warm water. You rinse them nice and well. Then you take paper towel and dry your hands. Do not throw that paper towel out. You use it to shut off the water and to open the door of the washroom if you are in a closed room. Of course, you can, if you really want to, you can wear latex gloves. Some people have latex allergies. I would myself stay away from that, but there's nitrile, there's other different types of gloves that you can use. But I find, especially with bread, your hands aren't getting dirty. The other thing is, if you have long hair, tie it up, tie it back. We tie our hair back and so hair doesn't fall into our product, into our breads or whatever it is that we're cooking or baking. So we always make sure we have our hair tied back. But the biggest one is hand washing. I'm going to be doing oatmeal stout. There's a local stout. Again, it's 235 milliliters, about 236 grams, half a tall boy can of beer. So we're going to warm that. We dump it into the pot, turn that on, turn it on. we get our thermometer out so that we can check the temperature. And with the oatmeal stout, we're going to add the oats to help soften them up. So we're going to add the oats in as we're warming the beer and proofing the yeast. As I say, all it does is helps to soften up the flaked oats. So there we go. We've dumped the oats in. We'll stir it around a bit. And again, we'll watch the temperature, about 40 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees roughly Fahrenheit, and is a perfect temperature for yeast to grow, to activate, grow, and make good bread or beer. Although when brewing beer, you don't really have to activate the yeast because it's going into a warm solution already. So, but in the bread, if we don't proof the yeast, we will get inconsistent rises. And I've found that out the hard way. So I've learned to always proof the yeast. Again, baby bottle, warm temperature. You can take a dab, put it on your wrist. Is it too hot? Then let it cool a bit. Something that a baby would, a baby bottle, a baby would drink. You don't want it too warm, you don't want it too cold. So body temperature, a little bit above is perfect. And there we go. It's about 35, so I'll pull it off the heat because it's going to, and there I am, I'm at 40. Yep, I'm at 40, it's a good temperature. So now we will dump in the yeast, move that out of the way, dump in the yeast and let it sit for 8 to 10 minutes. There we go. Stir it up so that it's all nice and wet. And there we go. So, and in the meantime, while we're waiting for that to proof, we will get the mixing bowl ready with the wet and a little bit of the dry ingredients. So here's the olive oil. In, dump it in, squeeze out as much oil as we can from the pouch. The dry goods. The dry goods, open it up and dump a little bit in. Come here, there we go. Dump a little bit of that in. And we're good. We're laughing. So we've got our yeast proofed. We've got the wet goods and a little bit of the dry goods in the mixing bowl. Get rid of the thermometer. And now we'll pour the beer and the oats and the yeast mixture into our mixing bowl. Attach the dough hook. Lower it, lock it in, start mixing it up a little bit, and we can start dumping in the dry goods. Now, sometimes, if you really want, you could spoon the dry goods in. But with these pouches, I found that just pouring it in works a little bit better. So I'm going to go back to that method because the spooning is a little bit harder. So I'll go back to just dumping it in. And it slowly dumps in. Right. And the pouch is empty. Scrape the last little bit of the yeast and beer and what have you. Get that out of the way. Now, some of that flour did get dumped on top of the dough hook, so I'm just cleaning off the top of it before we start pushing it down and getting the dough ball all together. And getting the flour and dry goods all mixed in. It's getting nice and wet. Pretty well all wet now. Some other mixers do have a knead setting, so if it has a knead setting, set your mixer to knead. If it doesn't have a knead setting, set it to stir. We've been kneading for about 8-10 minutes. The bowl is nice and pretty well cleaned up. So we'll shut things down, flip it up. See, the bowl is nice and pretty well clean. Set that out of the way. Pull the dough off of the dough hook. And I didn't grease the bowl. So lightly grease the mixing bowl to put this to bed to rise for the first time. And there we go. And again, hand knead a little bit. You just fold it under. It's good. Hand knead, pat it down into a ball. Plop it into your proofing, your rising bowl. Dust the top with some oil. Cover it over. And into rise for 45 minutes or an hour. Okay, so the first rise, although this oatmeal one didn't rise as much as I would like, it still rose some. And the first rise isn't as crucial as the second rise. So I am going to make buns with this dough. So we roll it out onto the table, punch it down to deflate it. And again, you can twist it, you're kneading it. So you're trying to build that gluten structure. So kneading it in your hands, even twisting it is still a form of kneading to some degree. But we want to divide this up because I'm going to do buns. We want to divide this up into 6 equal parts. Now, a lot of times I weigh it out, so I'll take this mass and I'll weigh it, and then I'll divide it by 6 for buns or 12 for rolls, and then make each little dough ball the size of that divided weight. In this instance, I'm going to just eyeball it into 6 buns, so roughly about half. Cut it, pull it apart, and into about thirds to make 6 buns. Pull it apart, pull it apart. So they're pretty close to the same size. Again, we divide it into about 6. They're not all going to be the same size, but they're all pretty close. So now we take each dough ball, we hand knead it a little bit, pinch in the bottom of it, either roll it on the counter like this, or roll it in your hands to make it nice and round. We'll pull out our cookie sheet and the parchment paper. Now, parchment paper, it just helps the dough to not stick as it's baking. For the most part, on the cookie sheet, you don't really need the parchment paper, but I use it most of the time. So there's one bun. Roll it in my hands. Try to pinch so there's no big cracks or anything in it. Pinch it all together. And roll it up nice. This one wants lots of little cracks in it. There we go. Space them out on the, we can put them together and they will sort of stick together. But there we go. Again, pinching it together to close in the cracks. A nice little ball. This one will be easy. A nice little ball. Pinch, pinch, pinch. That one I think is going to be a big bun, but that's okay. As I say, I just eyeballed these. In this case, most of the time I do use a scale and weigh the original dough ball. I'm not happy with this one. I want a nice, smooth, reasonably smooth top. That's better. Oh, this one will be a small bun. That's okay. That's okay. These aren't looking too bad, these buns. And there we go, six buns. Now, I've mentioned that we can brush with oil. If you like a crispy crust, a nice crunchy crispy crust, then brush it with water. But the oil will give it a softer crust. So the baguettes, normally baguettes I would brush with water because baguettes normally have a crunchy crust. And that's that. So now we cover them and put it to bed for another rise, a second rise. And there we go. Get rid of the dust. Now, the oatmeal stout. Buns, they could have risen more. The oatmeal is a little slow on the rise. They could have risen more, but they will rise in the hot oven. So I will bake them now and see. Okay, so now my buns are done, and I'm gonna pull them out of the oven. And I also have them up at the top. Yeah, that's not too bad. And with the loaves, when they come out of the oven, if you tap on them, they'll sound a little hollow. It's harder with the buns, but still, they'll sound a little hollow. And as you see, there are different sizes because I didn't measure the weights to get. So they are different sizes. And out on the cool. And there we go. I thank everybody who watched this. My kits are available online or at selected Ontario craft brewers.